The presenting sponsor of Moon Tower Soccer is FVF Law.
To find out what makes FVF a different kind of injury law firm, you can visit fvf.law.
Hello, friends. Thanks for listening to Moon Tower Soccer. This week, we're going to cover Austin FC's 2-2 draw at home against Minnesota United in the season opener. We'll talk through last week's press conference with Rodolfo Borrell. We will also talk through the anonymous sporting director survey that The Athletic did and preview the upcoming match against DC United, as well as cover some other Austin FC news. My name is Landon and I'm joined, as always, by Mr. Jeremiah Bentley.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jeremiah Bentley, and we'll start this off with, it is great to have a game week, and I think we talked about this last week, not worry so much about what we're going to talk about. But then this was really kind of a newsy week outside of game stuff, too, so it'll be kind of fun to get through all this.
Yeah, we're out of the weeks where we're worried about what we're going to talk about and more worried about what we have to talk about.
Right. Well, let's start it off on Friday before the match. Well, on Friday's broadcast before the match, we got to go on CBS TV on We Are Austin and do a little game preview with Trevor and Sierra. And I just want you to share your experiences you've had in the past in being in a TV studio, because I thought that was like really kind of fun.
Oh, yeah. We were there in the green room waiting to go into the studio. And Jeremiah does this stuff a lot. Like, you're on TV or doing little filming things. It was like, you've probably been here several times, haven't you, Jeremiah? And you're like, yeah, I have. I said, the only time I've ever been in a TV station was in Lubbock, Texas, when we were like the local culture segment that aired at like 6:30 a.m. And it was my band. They had my band on to play a song at 6:30 a.m. We had to lug all of our stuff in there and like play. We're used to playing at like 11:30 p.m. and we were there at 6:30 a.m. for whatever reason. I don't know why we had to do that live necessarily, but we did. But that was the only other time I've been in a TV station.
So, and how did you feel after that experience? Like that, those Trevor and Sierra like make it easy. I feel like super nice, super kind people, super inquisitive.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was like a little nervous, but I knew that the questions weren't going to be hard because this is not necessarily the like for Austin FC diehards. It's like, this is for a general population who might be curious about what's going on. So that took a little of the pressure off. But then also we've done a few events with Trevor, and he's just one of the loveliest people I've ever met. And I was like, Trevor's going to make this comfortable and easy. And he did.
Yeah, he always does. And so if you didn't have a chance to see it, I'm sure we're going to link to the replay of the interview in the show notes. And one of the things that we should pat ourselves on the backs on is time is precious on these shows. And they told us that we would have 5 minutes, and they gave us 8, which means
really?
we must have done a pretty good job, because it didn't cut us off short, or we just rambled on and there was no place to cut us off.
Yeah, we didn't stop talking, so they couldn't edit it.
Yeah. So let's take it for the positives. Then Saturday comes up, and we're going to talk a lot about the first match, but I like compare the first match day to the first day of school for me. You had to make sure the outfit was perfect. I was so excited to see all my friends after having been away from them for a few months, get back to Turnstile, talk to Adrian, talk to Nick, see Aggie, make the lap of the stadium.
Also, like some old friends, like over in Live Oak Park at the little celebration over there, I ran into Mateo Clark and Chris Haig. These are like OG friends of ours from like the first year coming into all of this and kind of getting it all started. So that it was a nice little walk down memory lane too.
Yeah, OG friends who live somewhere else now, which is why we don't get to see them very often. Yeah, so that was really cool. We get the TIFO, but maybe the magic will leave my head one day for the opening day of the season, but it was not this year.
Yeah, still felt great to be in there. I guess we should get into a little bit of the game here, Jeremiah. What I think there's like a lot of mixed emotions leaving the stadium the other night. What were your emotions after this game on Saturday?
Yeah, let's go with those, and we'll talk about them, sort of high level. But I left the game feeling very encouraged and then very frustrated at the same time. And I'm going to start with the encouraged, because I feel like there have been plenty of times that we've left frustrated after a draw and felt like maybe Austin was the better team and the shots didn't go our way, the result didn't go our way or whatever. And it was just mostly frustration, like a little bit of silver lining. Like This one, like, I felt really, really good, and I mean, for very good reason for 90 plus minutes. Felt like it was going to come out ahead, but I want to talk specifically about why. And I think the number one thing is that we had this promise, not the promise, we had this idea from Nico that this would be like a more direct, attacking, fluid, less horseshoe of sadness club. And at least on Saturday night, that was true. And that was one of the things that left me feeling very encouraged.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I think it's we'll get into some of our thoughts on this later on in the show, but there's still some stuff that I think is cause for concern on the offense. But this looked like a team that is capable of moving the ball, breaking down a defense at times, and scoring some goals. We didn't do it the ideal way. Both of our one of our goals coming on a set piece, the other one coming off of not like I would say like a half broken play and kind of a weird situation. Really well worked, and we'll give some of these guys their flowers when we talk through that goal. But there's some other moments where you wish you could get maybe Uzuni involved a bit more, maybe get some more shots on target from open play and things like that. But overall, I left the stadium saying like, okay, this is a team that, well, I'm not sure that they're going to be very, very good. I am fairly confident that they're not going to be very, very bad, and maybe even pretty good. So that's better than we could say for the last few years, I think.
Yeah, and getting this kind of results, and they're going to be entertaining and maybe being good and probably not being really bad, but actually being kind of fun, or at least after one match, which I think goes a long way. And for me, a big part of that is like Jayden Nelson, while the stat sheet probably wasn't amazing, like he just looks dangerous and looks to be going forward and was just like a blur of speed and hair coming down the wing like a lot. And I really love the way that he particularly played. And I guess that was dramatic. Facundo Torres was really good too. I just didn't feel like I noticed him as much.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He still showed flashes, but I think you're right. Jayden Nelson was the player who stuck out the most to me in a positive way. It's such a breath of fresh air, like to have a player like this who we had Bukhari last year who would do like have these big moments of magic occasionally, but then would disappear at times. And I think I said this is what I hoped out of Nelson is that he seems like a player that will not disappear from games. Like he finds a way to get involved, and he's just so busy, so active with his movements, with runs in behind, checks in towards the ball. His dribbling, his ability to go to the inline or cut inside. And so he's just so unpredictable, so hard to stop that he draws players to him. And I think with this kind of depleted starting 11, he was still able to create some really dangerous moments. Think of what happens when you have Owen Wolf on the field, when you have Brendan Vasquez on the field, when you have Mikael Dessler on the field, Guilherme Biro on the field. Like when you have a more complete 11 players on the field, each of them drawing some of that attention away from the others, that is very encouraging. Still not, again, I don't want to be too overhyped on any of this because I think there's still some flaws and that we can talk about later on, but a lot to be encouraged by, and Jayden Nelson was kind of the prime example of that.
Well, I forgot the third emotion I had was cold, which we didn't talk about. But especially I'll get to the second emotion, but I feel like cold is my next emotion after being encouraged. Especially like those there in the corners, which are designed to allow wind flow because it's very hot in the summer. It also makes it very, very breezy when it's like 48 degrees and windy on a Saturday night. So once I got through that, then I was thinking there's still some frustration too. And I think particularly letting that final goal in, but really I feel like both goals were kind of bonehead plays, which we'll probably get into, but just these continuing defensive lapses, which we talked about a lot last year, where Austin was giving points away in reasons and situations they didn't need to. So then ultimately it still leads in like 2 drop points at home against Minnesota, which is not great in the context of the full season.
Yeah, I think the encouraging part of even the defensive side is that Minnesota was not just shredding us apart over and over and over and got 2 goals out of it. It was kind of like a few big plays that they created and a few lapses that we had that led to their 2 goals. They're not going to be the best team we play. And so I think you can read this either way. And then maybe we've also seen Austin FC teams and other teams where these kind of boneheaded things are consistent, and they could play a pretty good game all the way through and then let themselves down on one play. I hope that doesn't end up being the case, and we chalk this up to tired legs, losing focus late in the game. But it could be a thing that we just like have to deal with and need to factor in too.
Yeah, I'm going to hope that with the full squad that you just talked about and the ability to bring in some subs, maybe at least it's not going to be blamed on legs, although some of those guys that didn't play are also maybe prone to bonehead moves at various points in time, specifically Gimme Beater, if you're going to call one of them out. So, on the night, I saw this, I just generally describe online discourse as like a whole lot of people were positive and a whole bunch of people, not a whole bunch, a small group of people that were mad at people for being positive, and leave me in the positive camp on the night about how I felt about how Austin played and what the result was.
Yeah, a little bit of like an Inkblot test of a game, right? Of like, if you're the type of person to lean positive, you could take some positives away. If you're the type of person to lean negative, maybe don't have the sunny disposition that some folks have. But I think both are fair takes. I don't think anybody should say we're winning MLS Cup. I don't think anybody should say we're winning the Wooden Spoon. That's the kind of game that it was.
So I feel like we should take a break, and then we're going to get boring and analytical Landon to draw a line down the middle about specifically some things that happened in this match. Does that work?
Yeah, let's do it. Twin Tower Soccer is brought to you by our friends at FEF Law.
FEF is a different kind of personal injury law firm dedicated to community, transparency, and client education. Two things. They have their own podcast called Summary Judgment. Thing one, it's great. You should check it out. Thing two, they're not going to scream their phone number at you as loud as they possibly can while they repeat a single number. So they're cool.
You can go to FEF.law to find out what makes FEF a different kind of injury law firm and why understanding your legal options can dramatically change the outcome of a case. Once again, that's FEF.law. Amplify Credit Union is a member-owned financial cooperative that served the needs of Central Texans for over 5 decades. As a credit union, Amplify has no shareholders or parent companies. That means more of your money stays in the community.
Amplify has been the home of fee-free banking since 2022. Their free checking accounts come with 0 overdraft fees or minimum balance. That means Amplify's fee-free checking accounts help you get more mileage from your everyday spending.
Amplify membership is open to any Texas resident. Learn to trust your bank again at Amplify Credit Union. To learn more and to register for free parking at the Esperanza branch on game day, visit www.goamplify.com/moontower. Check that URL because it is simpler, thank you Amplify, than the one we used last season. Goamplify.com/moontower. All right, we are back. Later on in the show, we're going to go through Rodolfo Borrell's press conference. I think we learned some interesting things from that. We'll also talk about the This Athletic article where they do an anonymous survey of all the GMs/sporting directors in the league. Learned some interesting things from that, I think, as well. But first, let's dig more into this opening game, Minnesota United. We got an amazing tifo at the beginning of this game. This one was great. I mean, I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, it's so hard to come up with a new superlative for these. Like, it was big, textured, meaningful.
Meaningful is what, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. And if it's one, it just looks really cool on the face of it. And two, if you go and read the story behind it or watch the video with the story behind it, it makes it even more important. So yeah, that was incredible. Did you do any tifo this time around, or? I
did not. Yeah, I think I did. I worked on one of them last season, but wasn't able to get up there and work. They usually do it up north, which makes it hard for me to do as a South Sider during the week. But it's always fun. Anybody who wants to work on tifo, highly recommend. Take kids, take people who don't like soccer but like arts and crafts. It's just a great time, and it's really cool after you've worked on it to see it get raised up. It's so cool.
Oh, even before tifo, you did participate in the march from Hop Squad to the match. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, it was again this talking about the first day of school kind of thing. This is the processional, the route that they take is too hard to do a standard march for every game. But on this one game, they work with local police and block off part of the road there and walk down the street with La Murga playing and everybody chanting and walking together. It's just a great way to start the match day. Also, fans holding a banner up front that. Do you remember the exact wording on it, Jeremiah?
I don't remember the exact wording on it, but a
Together
banner.
we are America, something
Yeah.
along those lines. Borrowing the phrase from the Bad Bunny halftime Super Bowl show, I think was the inspiration there. But very, very cool. Had some Minnesota United folks walking along with us and kind of doing some collaboration stuff before then, which is great to see. I mean, we talk about the soccer community here in Austin being a beautiful part of this. That extends beyond Austin, right? Where there's stuff going on here and other places, and we can kind of bond over that and use soccer as a way to have that bond. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and so I went to Turnstile before the game. Didn't do the march because my sister was in town, and I could not convince her that we should be at the stadium at 4:30 or wherever it was. But it was cool because there were like Minnesota United people there, and we bought them beers, and they were just that whole like what is it, drink 90 drink. That is the way that all of soccer culture should be, and it feels like we really have that congenial spirit with the Minnesota United folks.
Yeah, they're great.
Okay, let's talk about who didn't play. I feel like that's the biggest thing coming into the match is one, who is healthy or not healthy. Two, would people who are dumb enough to get red cards in a preseason match get penalized for their actions by the coach? And the answer to that one was yes.
Yeah. So Brandon Vasquez, we all know he's a few months away from coming back. Mikael Dessler, who did not play in any preseason games, he was also not dressed. And then Owen Wolf, I think we got news in a couple of different places over the last week that he's going to be another couple of weeks probably. So maybe at the end of next week, he'll start training, which I would say probably puts him out of the DC match too. And maybe we're hoping to have him available in any way in the third game. So missing those two. You mentioned the red cards. Guilherme Biru and Sabovic, as we discussed on last week's show, both got really stupid red cards in the final preseason game. We were talking about the starting lineup last week and kind of predicting who would be in the 11 for this game. And I think I said, like, I expect it to be exactly the same unless Nico decides to punish Biru for that red card. And that's exactly what he did. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but I'm kind of into this. Like, I like this idea. Nico, in the post-game press conference, talked about the need to build a culture. And we heard a couple of player comments here and there about, like, not calling them out, but kind of a veiled remark of, like, that was dumb. We got to do better than that. And I kind of like Nico sending the message, like, no, we need more. And he also talked in another part of the post-game press conference about the need to be demanding and that, like, good enough isn't good enough this year, which I love because I feel like that has been the case for a lot of Austin FC's existence.
Right. Well, both of those things. One, a coach not managing the locker room very well and allowing division to come in when things aren't great. Yeah. And two, not being demanding in a real way. I feel like there have been like the words about being demanding, but they're like, no, we just had this chat with my sophomore in high school who has turned in homework, like no consequences for the action, but just words about the lack of action. And that's a whole different thing. And yeah, I mean, it almost didn't cost Austin any points on them the night. At most, it's 2 points on the year, but you probably make that up in culture. So I've got no problem with this move.
Yeah. And one of the things that makes that possible is having enough starting caliber players to put on the field, because I think there's certain points in Austin FC's history where I don't know if this actual occurrence ever happened, but like maybe they would have benched someone or suspended someone for something. And there's like, we just don't have enough players. Like,
it's like, there's Aiden Stanley and Freddie Kleeman, and that's it, right?
And we're starting Nick Lima at center back, man. Like, we can't, we can't afford it.
That's very true. Okay, so the lineup itself then comes out, and this is not, this is a pretty decent lineup given all the situations. Stewart at the back, Kolmanich, Svatak, Heinzak, Gallagher across the back line. I don't know, the front six. Do you want to talk about where we see the front six?
Yeah, I think it was a 4-2-3-1. So I'd say Sanchez Pereira as the two holding midfielders. Nelson on the left wing, Torres as a 10, Rosales on the right wing, and then Uzuni as the 9.
Which is probably the best place to put Mirto Uzuni. Although he doesn't get the ball a lot, maybe when you do that, but he somehow made things happen when he does. So we'll get into that in a bit. But I guess, man, the first goal comes early, and we get one of these great Austin FC PR communications tweets. This is the Brendan Hindsight 7 minutes in from Facundo Torres on a set piece. From memory, if I remember it right, it's like the earliest in a player's playing career in Austin that they had contributed to a goal, because Facundo Torres has played for 7 minutes and picked up
Oh
an
yeah,
assist.
yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, this comes early. Nelson and Torres are kind of combining on the left side to win a corner, and that was kind of a sequence that was useful for us all night. Was working that left hand side, having guys rotate around each other, overlap, underlap, things like that. Torres takes the corner, plays an out swinger. Heinzike loses his marker, and it looks like Minnesota's doing like a mixed man and zonal marking. So some guys were marking like the big guys running, and then they had other guys just like marking space. And so Michael Boxall was one of the guys marking space. So BHI loses his man, and the ball is coming right towards Boxall, but he doesn't see Heinzike coming. So Heinzike just takes to the air and kind of cuts the ball out before it gets to Boxall and just hits a really powerful header past Calendar. He has no chance. So well done there. A little bit lucky for just circumstances. That's the case on any set piece goal though, right? Like you need circumstance on your side a little bit, but well done by Heinzike. And then also the service was really good. Just like whipping in a ball to the right spot is a very useful skill. And I think that is going to be just having that little extra bit of quality in the service is going to be really useful. Not to say Owen's terrible at it, but I think Torres is better. And then a thing I said a lot in the offseason last year, like having someone else take set pieces puts Owen in the box on those when he's back healthy, which is, I think, even more valuable. So I'm looking forward to seeing more service from Torres there.
Yeah, that's a better place for Owen to be for sure too. And Michael Boxall failing, always something that I appreciate in any way.
I would say, like, I think Austin was probably the better team for most of the first half, at least the first quarter of the game. Some, like I said before, some promising attacking moments coming through combination play up that left-hand side. Nelson beating people. Torres sprung a few counters. There's one where we went on the counter and Torres like just slightly overcooks a through ball into the box for Nelson. That to find the gap and play the gap was really, really well done, but he just hits a little too hard and Nelson can't catch up to it. So, but there were like several moments like that looked really, really good at certain spots. Minnesota ends up creating a few dangerous moments in the second half there, a couple of goal mouth scrambles where Stuver makes a good save. And then there's the Tomas Chankalai hits that curler that Stuver was able to dive and push wide.
Reg, big hand.
And then
Big
that
hand.
ensuing corner leads to the Minnesota goal. And so that one's a little bit frustrating here just because a little against the run of play, like Austin being the better team. Joaquin Pereira plays in the corner. Ilie is marking Morris Duggan, who's one of their center backs. Ilie like sees the ball, tracks the ball, goes up to win it, and just kind of whiffs it. Doesn't get there in time, which leaves Duggan unmarked. He kind of whiffs on his header, but it bounces off of his shoulder and goes maybe between Stuver's legs, or it like bounces awkwardly, really hard to predict
weird
from short distance there.
Yeah, I love the FOTMob shot description is shot type other body parts, which I don't know if I've ever seen before. But I should go to the Uzuni goal because that may be the same description for the shot type.
Yeah, definitely. There's another one, I think in like the last minute of the first half that Stuver keeps out. And this is when Gallagher like loses an aerial duel on the backside of the box, which was kind of a theme with him last season. and then it gets headed across the box. Kelvin Yeboah chests it up in the air and volleys it, and Stuver is able to make a really great reaction save to keep it 1-1 for the first half. But so a bit of nerviness in the second half of that first half, but overall, I feel pretty good going into halftime here.
Yeah, me felt the same way, other than being cold.
I kind of liked the cold.
Oh, man. I was not dressed for it, and I refused to spend whatever it cost to buy another layer inside the stadium.
And your son maybe steals your layers sometimes.
He might, yeah. No, he was fine. He was probably in shorts, but he was okay.
So we go to halftime, come back out. Austin really did keep Minnesota fairly limited for most of the second half, too. Facu Torres gets a pretty dangerous shot early on in the second half where Nelson holds up a long ball from Stuver and then plays Gallagher through on an underlap, which is another little sequence that worked out quite well for us, where players would pull wide, as they would receive, another player would run underneath them and kind of, I don't know, like you're used to seeing fullbacks overlap wide. And it was kind of the opposite of that, where you pull wide and then you can make it kind of makes that through ball easier in some instances, right? Where you're playing it into a spot where they can run onto it and be more at goal, as opposed to so wide of the field when it's an overlap. And so Torres ends up ripping a shot off of a rebound. It gets blocked. Uzuni's there and almost gets to it, but they finally clear it out. And then in the 69th minute, Jayden Nelson comes out of the game. It doesn't look like he's in too bad a shape. And Nico said later in the post-game presser that he thinks it was just cramps, so nothing too serious there. And Robert Taylor comes into the game and helps create a goal not long after he's on the field.
Yeah, and I would say as someone who's been pretty vocally anti-Robert Taylor, that for the time he was on the field in this match, he was really dangerous and looked really good. And he does help lead to an Uzuni other body parts 0.98x goal attempt eventually. So through him and then through John Gallagher.
Yeah. Our friend Sonia, I ran into her in the concourse at the stadium, and she said, I wanted to talk to you about something you said on the show last week, which is that you're not like totally out on Robert Taylor and Mirto Uzuni. I was like, I don't know that they're going to come back, but I know they're good soccer players, and I hope that they can find a way to make it work. And so in the 76th minute, to varying degrees, they both find a way to make something work here. Robert Taylor receives wide left. He cuts inside, loses his defender. And he's, if you watch the replay, his head is up and he's scanning and checking. So I think he means to do exactly what happens next, which he crosses the ball like just beyond the far post, right into Gallagher's path, where Gallagher makes a really well-timed run on that backside. Callender has the near post covered. And so instead of just like punching it at goal, Gallagher kind of heads it back across the face of goal, where he has Uzuni and maybe Torres, somebody else is in the box there. And so heads it back across the face of goal, and Uzuni just like guides it into the goal from a foot out with his torso. Yeah. And just a very like Zardezian finish is what I'll call it. But they check it for offside, rightly allowed in my opinion after watching the replays, but a goal's a goal, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. You need a finisher. And it's interesting because I was thinking about that as a Zardezian goal, and Gyasi didn't score any of those in Austin. I feel like when we were doing over-unders, we had like over-under number of Gyasi butt goals, and we never got one. So good for Mirto for doing that.
He didn't score that many goals, period, but he definitely didn't score any stupid ones, I don't think. Not to my memory, anyway.
Yeah, and I saw a little bit of people thinking that like that was Johnny's goal and Uzuni like took it from him, but I don't know that shot is not, after watching it, I feel confident saying that shot was not on target if Mirto's chest is not there.
Even if it was on target, it was moving slow enough that like you punch that in. Like that's not a stolen goal. Like that's an insurance policy. You punch that one in for sure. So yeah, no shade on Uzuni.
Well-deserved goal. Wait, do you want to go to Mirto's Instagram Lion
Sure.
King post now? This feels like the best time for it.
So Mirto, celebrates hard on this goal. I think it's not a stretch to say that Robert Taylor and John Gallagher deserve most of the credit here, but Mirto's off to the corner, crowns himself, and is pumping the crowd up, and then later, maybe the next day, posts on his stories one image from the live action Lion King movie, it seems like, and then himself celebrating, and it says, "Believe in yourself, and there will come a day when others will have no choice but to believe with you."
Man's on track for 34 goals this season. I'm in.
I could see how this might rub some people the wrong way, but I kind of love it, honestly. Like, if this is what it takes to get the man confident again, by all means, do what you need to do, buddy.
I think that's true. If what we know about him and his mentality, then this is like, he seems to be all on or all off. He's like either the greatest player in the world or like kicking himself in the head for how bad he is. So like, let's go with this one, because this is going to be the more productive one. And
I will say, I don't think he deserves no credit for this goal. It's I can never remember who said this, but whatever Premier League striker, I need to like write it on my wall over here or something. But the guy who said, "I'm not in the right place at the right time. I'm in the right place every time." And so that's like that kind. I'm not saying he's in the right place every time, but it's like the kind of striker mentality and the movement that like, okay, the ball fell to him in front of the goal, but he was in front of the goal when the ball fell to him. So he deserves a little bit of credit for being there.
Yeah.
Robbie and John still deserve most of the credit.
Okay, so that's 2-1, 76 minutes, and then Austin sees it out and wins the game 2-1, and we all go home happy, right?
Exactly. Not quite. Let's see. Yeah, Taylor continues to be really influential in the game. There's a run behind that leads to Danny Pereira ripping a volley at Calendar that he's able to block. And then not long after that, Robert Taylor pulls up hobbled after taking a shot, continues playing, but on the rewatch, I was watching him and you just see him reaching down and kind of like moving his knee around and touching his knee. And he still plays for a while. And then at some point, you can kind of see him gesture towards the bench like, "Hey, I'm done." And that kind of leads to Minnesota's late equalizer. Yeah. It plays a decent sized part in it, at least.
Yeah, because there's this weird rotation of subs that's right before this goal comes on, which I think we heard in the post game maybe wasn't what Austin was originally planning on, other than Taylor going down.
They were going to take off Torres. That's what they said on the broadcast. I didn't see that, but on the broadcast, the announcer said that they had initially held up Facu's number and then put it down and had to change the sub card. And so this is a thing that Nico mentioned in the post game, is that they should have handled that situation a little bit better, where, okay, we're going to make a sub. Now Taylor needs this sub. Instead of trying to play on and like keep the play going, Taylor should hit the ground. Just drop. Like, okay, you need a sub, hit the ground. We'll bring out medical staff. It gives us time to change the card and get a different sub.
And then like, get ready. And set everybody where they're going to be, right? Because once you change the philosophy on the fly, like that can lead to something bad, which it does.
Yeah, philosophy is one thing, but also just having 11 players who can run is important too. But so the ball goes out of play. I don't remember how it got there, but Taylor is saying, "Hey, I need a sub." And then right after that, Minnesota throws the ball in, switches the field, and Devin Padelford, who had been subbed on at left back, drives the length of the field. Gallagher engages him probably a little bit too late and doesn't shut him down early enough. But Padelford's able to take a touch to the inline, puts in a cross. In the box, Svataki kind of stepped ball side. And then Heinzeich follows Dieng, the second striker they had subbed on, across the box on his run. It leaves Kolmanich backside in the box. He's got one player trailing deep on his right side, and then Yeboah running really hard right up the middle. And so he has a decision to make. He kind of doesn't mark either of them. And Yeboah, like Air Jordan, jumps up into the air and just smashes the ball into the goal with his head. And I think there's like tired legs, there's tired tired legs turn into tired minds, right? So just a lack of focus there a little bit. I think Kolmanich probably should have recognized, like, okay, I should not worry about this little dude over here and worry about one of the biggest, most athletic strikers in the league
Yeah.
and try to put a body on him. Even if he did that, it might not have mattered, just because Yeboah is much, much larger than than John Kolmanich. I think that's another thing as well that I was thinking of the other night, is that there is a version of an Austin FC starting 11 that would be considered tall. And
which has never been the case, right?
Yeah, and this was not one of them, right? So without Dessler in there, without Biru in there, that's like a 4-inch swing going from those two to Gallagher and Kolmanich. So that's part of it. Ilie was marking a 6'3", 6'4" center back on that first one. So that's something that hopefully can get a little bit better as well. But it's a really a frustrating way to end the game on something like that. Just like didn't need to happen.
Especially because, and just the timing of it is always so deflating, because this is at 90. When it seems like Austin's going to be able to get up with the win. And then we get the Robert Taylor off, CJN and Joseph Rosales off, and John Bell in sub, but like pretty much nothing happens. Was that Yeboah shot the last shot of the match? If it wasn't, it was pretty close to it.
I think it was, if not the last one, period, it was the last meaningful one. I don't.
It was the last one, period. I was just looking.
Happened.
Yeah, it was the last shot on target. So nothing else happens. Yeah, Austin ends up out on a 2-2 draw. So let's let me start with a thing I liked. Love the new kits in person on the boys. And I always thought I was going to like the jersey, but the combination of the jersey and the shorts and the socks all together like tell a really good story.
I really liked it too. I think I said this last week, that the combination of the shorts, like with the black stripes on the side, that it felt weird in print to me. It didn't bother me in person. And I think, overall, I think it's a really strong uniform.
What else did you like?
We already talked about Jayden Nelson. I thought he was good. Facu Torres showed some bright spots. And I think you said my favorite thing early on is just like, this team was trying to attack, trying to play some fun soccer. And it wasn't just words from Nico, that he's backing it up with the product on the field that hopefully will become more effective and better at actually doing it. But the intent is clearly there.
Well, we kind of teased a little bit about sometimes when that broke down. Did you have any specific examples or any like players or anything where, like the movements weren't there or the attacking wasn't there?
Well, should we move on to our things we didn't like?
Yeah, let's do that. Things we didn't like. Go for it.
So we don't have our best 11 together, which is frustrating to feel like, okay, we are a deeper team now, but not so deep that we can be missing 4 or 5 starters and still put out a super strong starting 11. So that's frustrating. But going back to what was missing, Uzuni was not super involved in the game. Not entirely his fault necessarily. We need to find a way to, if he's going to play striker the way he's playing striker, which is oftentimes hanging off the back, the back shoulder of center backs, trying to make runs in behind, we have to find ways to get him shots. And we didn't really do that many times in this game. I think it is goes back to the same old problems of who's the lock picker in this group. And I think Nelson can do a little bit of it. Torres can do a little bit of it. But if we're doing it by committee, if we're doing it in the aggregate and we are missing part of the committee, it doesn't work as well. And so I think putting Owen back out there helps quite a bit. But we need to be able to play some of those more decisive, deceptive passes. And again, better than what we saw for most of the last 3 years in this one game, but it needs to be a little bit better if we're going to score more goals from open play and get our striker involved in the game.
Well, tell me if this was your perception, because this is mine. It's we did a way better job than normal of breaking lines, but that was from the first line to the second line, to the second line to the final third, and then when it came to the final third, they're just it still continues to be lacking.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair.
And then I would say the one thing I don't need to see Joseph Rosales on the wing long term. Maybe maybe you don't have a choice with the 11 the players you have available today, but when Owen comes back, and especially when Brendan Vasquez comes back, like I'd really like to see him be a really good fullback and not have John Kolmanich back there.
Well, Nico said in the post-game press conference that Joseph Rosales has never played fullback.
I missed that.
I don't think that's true. But the point he was making was like he played wingback at Minnesota, which is different, which is true. That is different.
It's true.
I still am almost positive Joseph Rosales played straight up fullback for Minnesota on more than one occasion. And even if that is your point, that he was never a fullback, he also never played right wing. So
right.
If you're saying I'm not going to play him at left back because he never played left back, it's like, well, he never played right wing. What's your logic here? And so I think Joseph Rosales was really useful in some ways in that position where if we're going to pressure teams in certain ways defensively, we weren't pressing super high. We were kind of sitting in a mid block, but then if we lost the ball in certain places high, Rosales is really good at closing people down in those areas, really good at helping track back and cut lanes off. He can do that from the left side as well. And there's just so many moments where he looked uncomfortable trying to play on that side of the field. Like you see Nelson when he receives on that wide left side, he's so nimble, so agile, and can go to his left to the inline. He can go to his right to cut inside. Rosales did not look comfortable pushing to the inline on his right foot there. And so it made him a bit more predictable. It's also just less of his game, right? Like he's not going to be the guy to face up people 1v1 and dribble him all the time. So I think he's too good of a player to not get more out of him in whatever position he's playing. So I think that would be my two big notes as far as like what Nico needs to figure out is like, we have to get more out of Rosales and we have to figure out how to get Uzuni more involved in the game. And that is his job. Like there's a lot that's like on players or whatever, but this is up to Nico here.
And I guess the historical is probably too broad of a term, but like the historical perspective on this is a lot of people had a lot of feelings in the same way about Osman Bukhari last year. Like where we're just trying to place it's not his best position. And so therefore there's like less grace this year when it's like, is this same thing that we all got annoyed by last year happening again this year with a different player? And regardless of fullback or wingback or whatever, I guess my original note was I don't want to see him on the right wing in the long term. And that's the thing I will stand by.
Yeah. And like, honestly, I think maybe the simplest fix would just be to swap him and Nelson. Like if Nico is dead set on Rosales being a winger for the time being, put him on the other side, and that gives Rosales the ability to kind of go to the inline, get himself in spaces that he's more comfortable with, and like whipping in balls with his left foot from that left side there. That is what he did really, really well in Minnesota. And Nelson seems like he's happy to go either way on either foot. So I don't think he's at that much of a disadvantage when you put him on the right side. So maybe we'll see that at some point.
Did you have any other player notes you wanted to cover before we take a break?
I think John Gallagher had kind of a mixed outing, but mostly positive. We talked about that aerial duel that he was a little suspect on. Probably should have reacted a little faster on that final goal and closed down Padelford, but made some clever plays in the attack. Seemed more comfortable in like this more traditional fullback role instead of like doing that part winger in attack and then a wing back in the defense. Like I think he seemed a bit more comfortable doing this. Got a great shot away in the 58th minute that forced a really big save from Callender. And then there's one time where Rosales kind of poked a ball forward, and it was, I think Gallagher's like behind him still, like not even with him on the field. And he pokes it forward, and I'm just like, oh, that's a terrible pass. And then Gallagher just, what I didn't clock is that Julian Gressel, who's I don't know how old and was never all that fast to begin with, was the guy tracking Gallagher, and Gallagher just leaves him in the dust and just runs right past him. And so I think overall it was like a pretty positive outing from Gallagher. Danny Pereira, I think he had a couple of cheap giveaways, but solid game overall. I think he really helped set the tone, like on with and without the ball. Like his energy defensively was really, really positive. And then did Danny Pereira stuff in like kind of the best way that you can think of it happening.
Yeah, I want to back that up too, because I know we're always kind of mixed on Danny, but I do feel like where he was playing that he really contributed to the club on Saturday. That's another one where I'm just interested once everybody's back, like how the pieces fit together and how they're best deployed, and hopefully we can find a way to like find the best Danny.
Yeah, for sure. I want to give Spot Talk some credit here with the just like wrestling matches that he was getting into with Yeboah. We just talked about how Yeboah is one of the just biggest, baddest dudes as far as strikers go. And Svatak was frustrating him for a lot of the game. I think there were some times when Yeboah would drop in between lines to receive a ball, and we maybe didn't react fast enough there. But as far as just the like physical duels, Svatak gave Yeboah his money's worth there. So I think he deserves some credit.
And I just like the combination of the two. I feel like Heinzek and Svatak are a great pairing. It's center back, and their strengths, their skills play off each other really well.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's all my player notes. I think we've kind of covered everyone that I needed to. And hopefully Robert Taylor is healthy. Like, we don't know what the injury was. They seem not to really know at the end of the game, but he looked really promising. It would be a really nice thing to either have starting or coming off the bench. So hopefully it's nothing too serious.
Yeah, it would sort of undermine everything we talked about finally having some depth if then suddenly one of these depth pieces who's really important wasn't available to the team anymore.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've covered enough. Yeah, mixed bag as far as outcomes and feelings and emotion go, but I think it's a solid starting point, right?
It is, and we'll find out more in a few days. But yeah, there have definitely been worse starts to a season in this club's history. Basically, every season except 2022, I think, has been off to like a less encouraging start.
I think in 24, was that the year that we started against Minnesota and it was just a miserable game to watch?
Yes, I think that was. I think one of those where I'm like, I can't even stay awake for this, and it's a 7:30 match.
All right, so better than that one. Okay, well, let's take a break. We're going to come back and cover some other Austin FC news, including Rodolfo Borrell press conference, the Athletic article we mentioned, and then some other information about like what's new with Austin FC this season and the stadium. And then we'll also do our DC United preview a bit later on. Hang tight, we'll be right back.
This is one of my favorite parts of the soccer season where we have new ad copy. And so I'm happy to tell you that Moon Tower Soccer is brought to you by Sage Wilson Realty, home of soccer puns. And we got some from Eric and Landon. Hopefully we can add some more in, although I have none off the top of my head because I meant to think about them and I didn't. So I'm just going to start with this. Are you looking to score your next home while rates are back to their lowest levels since 2022? Don't get caught offside or offsides or whatever way you want to phrase it in this market.
Rates are not the only thing that have been low since 2022, if we're talking about Austin FC soccer either.
Absolutely not.
The right strategy can turn today's opportunity into a winning goal. If you're looking for Sage real estate advice in Austin, contact our friends at Sage Wilson Realty. Be sure to check them out online at sagewilson.com.
Also, pitch, boots, kit, other soccer words. And our premier sponsor is McGarwood's Consulting, helping clients in the public affairs space from lobbying at the local, statewide, and federal levels to digital and communications campaigns across the country.
McGuire Consulting has offices in 10 MLS cities and is proud to support Moon Tower Soccer and Austin FC's march to the playoffs. Contact our friends at McGuire Consulting at mwcllc.com for more information. All right, we are back. We've got still quite a few things to cover, but let's start with this Rodolfo Borrell press conference, Jeremiah. I kind of went into this one hoping that Rodo would not be as prickly as he was at the Facundo Torres introductory press conference, and we got for the most part, Rodo in a pretty good mood, which I feel like he often is in these kind of State of the Union things he does at the end of transfer windows.
Yeah, so how long does this one last? Because I feel like that's usually how you can tell what Rodo's temperature in is Cam having to pull him off the stage because he's just going to take questions forever, or does he just decide like it's time to go?
This one was pretty close to an hour, but that was a intentional and concerted effort by the comms staff to make sure that it did not go longer than an hour for everyone's sake that was involved.
Well, I think let's just go with the most Rodo thing out of all of it is like player acquisition and him saying how hard it is, but he's really good at it, but maybe he overestimated it, but still he's better at it than everybody else. Like, what did you take from this string of words?
It was really interesting because he's essentially saying people told me before I got here that signing players in MLS, like going through the whole process and getting deals over the line in MLS is really difficult and really slow. And he said that people told him that and that it's been much harder than what he imagined. And so off air, Jeremiah and I were talking about this, and I was like, it's a very un-Rodo thing for him to say, like, yeah, it's been really hard. It's like, it's more difficult than I thought it was. And for him to admit that, but then is also kind of a very Rodo thing for him to say, everyone told me it was hard, but I'm smarter than them. I'm going to do it better than all of them.
Yeah, and I'm going to take this quote straight from Verde all day, like where there's kind of this complaint about that process. And then he says, I'm not complaining. I'm very happy to what I've been able to bring in during this period that I've been here. If you look at this roster from the moment I landed to right now, the difference is huge. So it's like, yeah, I'm not complaining. Wait, or let me issue all my complaints and say I'm not complaining about it and how good I am at it. So that's a window into the man's brain. And I mean, he's right too there, but I guess it's the other thing. This roster is a lot better than it was when he got here, and I don't want to lose sight of that.
Yeah, I agree with that part of it, that he is right in that, like, MLS is weird, and it's hard to get people to understand that, like, and he was very clear about talking about discretionary money versus salary cap stuff, and that, like, oh, we don't have any money to spend, and then people see that we're spending all this money on DPs, and people who aren't in the weeds like we are like, wait, I thought you said you didn't have money. You just spent a lot of money. I was like, well, it's different money. Just trust me.
I guess, but I'm not as experts.
I got that one.
That's the one I meant to hit.
Gam. Well, they're both perfect, though. We guys are all MS experts, and there's a lot of Gam. Talk to us about what you took out of the player transfer process part of this.
Yeah, I think there was some interesting answers and some interesting insight and background onto some things. So there's a question about Uzuni, like the reports of him potentially getting sold to Turkey. And then Moises also asked the question, just like, tell us about the process. How do outgoing transfers work? Like, what's the first touch point? How does that all go? And he gave a few examples in quite a bit of detail, which it feels like he was kind of saying these are things that may have happened here at Austin FC with players who may still be on this roster right now, without saying their names. But one example that he gave was an opportunity to, like, call out kind of shady practices by agents and other clubs sometimes, where an agent or a club will contact a player and say, hey, we want you to come play for us. We'll pay you double. And so the player gets all excited about going somewhere, and then they contact the selling club, the potential selling club, and are lowballing the offer. And so they're like sowing discord essentially by getting this player excited about making a bunch of money, but then not giving the club what they think is a fair rate for it. So there was this whole saga of Danny Pereira a couple of years ago, right? Where there's a team in England who wants him, and just the details that have come out about that, it feels very much like that's what he's talking about. And I feel like he even mentioned that, like, some details in one of his last press conferences, but that, like, yeah, maybe they did want him and maybe they did want to pay him a bunch of money. They did not give us a fair offer
You want
for
to
him,
pay
and I'm
us a
not
bunch of
going to
money.
accept less than what he's worth. So that's that. And then it kind of said the same thing about talking about the veiled Uzuni example, or what I read as the Uzuni example, was that teams are reaching out all the time. Like agents, teams, whoever are reaching out all the time. And so there's conversations going on all the time. But in the end, we have to make the decision of like what's best for us right now. And was talking about like, this is what made me think it was Uzuni. Like at that time in the window, if we sell a player that we do not have time or resources to replace, then we can't do it. And I think that was kind of my argument for keeping Uzuni, or like not being too terribly upset that he didn't go in this window, because of when we are in the window. That if we sell him now, that's it. Like we're starting CJ Fodre or someone who's not a striker at striker the rest of the season. I don't, or at least until the next window. I don't like those options very much. And so that's kind of what Rodo said, was like, timing is everything on these things. So we want to get the value, but we also have to do it at the right time.
Well, and so speaking of windows, he also talked about selling the international slots just through the summer, made sure and talked about how they were, I don't know how you could quantify this, but records for GAM records for sales. Take that. But also he couched that in a way that's like, but also I plan to use them, at least one of them this summer too. Is that what you got from it?
That's what I was hearing, is that like he was given the opportunity to be vague and just say like, okay, well, the teams who bought them from us only wanted them for half a year, and so that's what we sold them. But the way he framed it kind of sounded like, no, I want at least the flexibility. If not, I have concrete plans to use at least one of these this summer. Which goes back to the Uzuni thing. If there's offers on the table for Uzuni in the summer, then at that point, okay, we have the World Cup break. We have a lot of time to kind of find someone, find a replacement, go through this long, slow process of bringing players into MLS. He's going to have that time this summer. So that's, an intriguing thought coming up for this next window.
And that might be a third international slot, right? That's available. So he could,
because of
necessarily convert that one.
The potential changing of Canadian players counting as domestic. That was breached as well. Rodo said like, yeah, I know they're talking about it. We kind of thought maybe they were going to do it. They haven't done it yet. We don't know when it's coming. So he did not hint that like he knows that it's coming this summer. He kind of acted like he was in the dark on it, which, knowing MLS, that may very well be true.
Right. Up until the day that it becomes available. Nobody may know. But I think the other thing that was interesting, like, is he acknowledged that a lot of people want a number 10, and he's at least aware of it, and had sort of the stock answer that we've sort of alluded to for where the chances come from out of this for them not having one.
Yeah, this came from my question, so I kind of took a bullet for the gang here on this one. I was like, I'm not even necessarily, I didn't say this, I just kind of let it be, but I'm not even necessarily saying we need a 10, but like chance creation was an issue, creating shots is an issue. A lot of like national media people are saying, why didn't Austin buy a 10? Why didn't Austin buy a 10? What's your philosophy on it? Like, tell us what you think. And I think, I don't know that you necessarily have to agree with his answer, but I liked that he seemed to give an honest one, which was like, there's a lot of ways to do it. You can do it with a single number 10. You can do it through like a variety of angles, through a variety of players. I think that's fair and totally true. I think where you would disagree was like, is this the group of players that can do it? That's still to be determined, but I appreciated that he gave an honest answer there and like seemed to think that you don't need that one guy.
And I guess I'm more likely, because we've heard this for years, right? Like, I'm more likely to believe that now from the guys that are in town. If you look at what Facundo Torres can do, and if you look at what Owen can do, and if you look at what sort of Danny can do a little bit more from the back and the wingers, like, there are more opportunities for that chance creation to come together. It just becomes where the finishing comes from. Yeah,
there was some other, I think, interesting insights on when asked, just like, what do you see in Torres? Like, why did you bring him in? What do you think he adds to the team? And one thing he kind of harped on was that Facundo is an MLS proven player. and that MLS is a weird league. It's really difficult. I think it's more difficult than people give it credit for being. And so bringing someone who knows the league, is proven in the league, is very important. And then goes on to say that, like, there might be players who are as good or better, and for whatever reason, they come to MLS and can't cut it, and they don't perform well. Again, seems like a veiled hint at some players that he's bought himself. But it's like a thing. He said it's like a thing you can't control, a thing you can't predict. And so by now going after a guy who has done it in MLS, like, it's not a guarantee, but there's a bit more evidence to suggest that this is a safer purchase than someone who has never played here.
And I totally agree with that. I don't think that the general fan appreciates that enough. I know a lot of my friends who are just like kind of casuals that like watched the end of last season and then dropped out and are coming back and want to know like who's the new exciting guy. Maybe we talked about this on TV a little bit. Like, that proven MLS track record cannot be underestimated. And that's one of the reasons the reason that I'm most excited about Facundo, coming here and contributing in whatever way he can.
Yeah. One other thing that was asked in the room was about the James Rodriguez rumors. And he just flat out said, like, we never talked to him. Like, we never had that conversation. People are making that up. And so that is in line with what Tom Bogert was saying about it. And so I think we can add a few Colombian reporters and outlets to a list of read with a grain of salt if we ever get rumors attached to us from them again.
Nonsense content. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to this. So then we got sort of the what's new in the stadium article, or I guess what's new about Austin article from Andy Loughnane, I think just after recorded, right on Wednesday of last week. A couple things that I thought were interesting that I deserve credit for not saying before because I knew them, was the opening weekend of the tournament. There's going to be like a big watch party somewhere, probably downtown, because Mexico plays on Thursday and Austin plays
of the World Cup.
Of the World Cup, yeah. Of the U.S. plays on Friday, so the 12th and 13th. That's going to be super cool. I imagine that would be a really big turnout. I remember, what year was that? I remember years and years ago, there was like a World Cup watch party at the Long Center that was just like super packed. Maybe it was before you were even here, but that was like one of the first like, oh, people from Austin like really kind of love soccer.
I was hoping they would do something like this, and like Austin has always loved soccer. Like, it's not new, but to have a focal point in the club to kind of organize and bring people together, I think that could end up being a really cool event.
Yeah, there's that one, and there are going to be ongoing watch parties for every match. So I think it'll be kind of dependent upon the space, but like it's good to see the club leaning into that in a way that they didn't last time around, like for a good reason. But I think there's a really solid connection there. The World Cup. We also got the Apple TV deal, which somebody even asked me about today, which we talked about last week. If you have Apple TV, you have MLS. If you're a season ticket holder, you have Apple TV and you have MLS. You don't have to pay extra for anything else. But if you don't subscribe to Apple TV, you have no MLS other than on replays.
Correct.
Okay.
Which, speaking of replays,
we do get those on, what is it? KBVO, I think now?
KBVO, which I think is available like over the air. So if you have rabbit ears on your TV, you can rewatch Austin FC games on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m., which is, I don't know that I'll ever use that feature, but I hope someone finds it useful. It's cool to, like, I don't know, people talk about access to these games, and it's cool to just like put them out into the world so people can see them.
Yeah, and I guess the one other broadcast note that I wanted to get into was Lincoln Rose back on the local radio broadcast on our iHeart station. If you get annoyed by the way the Apple TV announcers talk about things during the match, you can always like just skip on them and pick up Lincoln.
All right. There's also going to be there's some like themed nights, but one that I saw some people were excited about was the first bobblehead match.
I missed that one.
It's July 22nd. And so we talked about Austin not having to give $5 hot dogs or whatever quite yet. But it seems like they are doing some stuff to like get people a bit more engaged, to have some themed nights, which I'm not opposed to, but I am pretty excited about a bobblehead. Who would you pick as your bobblehead? Like, who do you think deserves the first bobblehead, Jeremiah?
I feel like it has to be a Brad Stuver bobblehead, but I
It
didn't
has
read
to
the
be,
article.
right?
Yeah. Oh, they don't say?
It doesn't say.
It's got to be Brad.
We'll find out on July 22nd.
Yeah. What if it's like a Freddie Kleeman bobblehead, to have two Freddie Kleeman references in the history in this show? Because I don't know who the most random player at this point would be on the roster. Riley Thomas bobblehead would mean something.
I think you mean Thomas Riley.
I almost said Riley Gaines, which I think is a female swimmer. So like I'm way out on that.
Okay, I think that's enough for that. Let's move on to this athletic article. So this is, like I mentioned earlier, they call it CSO, Chief Soccer Officer, because teams have different titles for these, but it is an anonymous survey sent out to every CSO in the league. I think something like 21 of the 30
it's 22,
responded.
which seems amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, 22, which seems like a really high number. It means that they have something to say. They want to get out there, especially anonymously.
Yeah, so there's like a survey element to it where you just see like how many people voted for X thing, which is like best player in MLS, or best, I think it was like best non-Messi or Son player in MLS, best stadium, best sporting director, best best signing of the offseason, things like that. So you can see how many people voted for each thing there. I feel like in the past, Austin has gotten maybe a bit more attention in these things, both positive and negative. We're a little bit invisible in this one, aside from a few things. And so the only place where Austin gets referenced, tell me if I'm missing anything, but one was we got some votes for best stadium. We didn't get the most votes, but we got some of the votes, and then it was mentioned specifically like somebody voted for it because of the pitch, which Austin won the players' vote for best pitch in the league last year. And so they're saying the grounds are phenomenal. That's reason enough for me to vote for it. So got some credit there. We got one vote. There's a pretty big field in this one, but one vote for most attractive coaching position in the league. I think we only had maybe one of those. And then we somehow got one vote for who will win MLS Cup. And so it was like a lot of people voted for Miami. Slightly fewer people voted for LAFC. And then a bunch of teams got 1 or 2 votes. Austin got 1 vote on that. My reaction is almost like, is somebody trolling us? Are they making fun of us?
Because you can't vote for yourself, right? I mean, that's what they said. To be a part of this. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not. I lost the vote for Homecoming King at your high school because my best friend and I agreed to vote for each other. And then I voted for him, and he voted for himself. And I lost by 1 vote. So I'm bitter about that. But yeah, it feels like that's what had to happen for that to, or somebody's just a troll. It's not Matthew Doyle. I mean, he's not a chief soccer officer, but
yeah,
that was kind of weird.
Of the other ones, I feel like it's fair for Austin not to get mentioned outside of the best goalkeeper in the league. I think there's like 8 guys mentioned, and Brad Stuver's not one of them, which I know we're homers, and I know like maybe some Austin fans will say he's the best no matter what. He has been consistently a top like 3 to 5 keeper in this league for many years at this point, and it kind of shocks me to see him like continue to not always get credit for that.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to say about this survey is like this is part 1, which is specific to teams and players and organizations, and so this is going to be the Austin specific thing. But the part 2, which is the next part, is more like big picture, like league structure, World Cup, like. Honestly, that's the more interesting part to me because it's probably the more meaningful part. Because like these are the people that have some voice in the future of the rules of this league and like the things that might happen. And so I'm really looking forward to when that comes out and we can see where their heads are around these greater issues.
Yeah, we get a lot more like bigger conceptual takes out of them in that portion of the survey. So I'm not saying we're necessarily going to learn anything more about Austin or Austin will get referred to more, but it is a look inside these guys' minds, like the people who are running this league and running these teams, to know like where they think it's going, where they hope it's going. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
All right, let's talk about DC United. So this match is going to be at home on Sunday afternoon at 1:30. For those of you that thought we were all going to settle into a routine about like when games are and where they are, I haven't looked at the weather, but it should be warmer than it was last Saturday.
I checked today, and I think the high is like 82 on that day or something. So could be like warm or hot, but not too hot. Maybe even pleasant.
Maybe even pleasant. Yeah, and I don't even know where the sun is right now. Like I know in June, July, and August exactly where the sun is and when shade is available in different parts of the stadium. I don't know on March 1st. So DC United, wooden spoon winners in 2025, basically cleaned house, fired everybody, but did pick up a 1-0 victory over Philadelphia Union in the opening match. Let's talk about the players who are in. I think one that people will probably know is Ty Barbaro came over from Philadelphia and scored the first goal, scored the one goal in the match against Philadelphia. So like scored the winning goal against his old team. So yeah, he'll be in it forward. And then they also had a club record signing from a Romanian, which I feel like is not often where teams bring in club record signings. But do you know anything about this guy?
I don't. I've was looking at just like his stats from previous seasons and leagues, and they're not like he won Golden Boot 1 year in the Romanian league, but I don't know what that means. So I've seen some people kind of like be a little bit skeptical of like how big of an impact this guy's going to have. I think he only played 30 minutes in this opener. So I don't know. Yeah, TBD what he looks like. The profile that I read on him says that he's kind of in the same vein as Baribo, where he's like a runner, high energy striker. He's not going to be the guy to receive to his feet and kind of make stuff happen that way. He's going to be a mover essentially and like creates chances that way. Which we'll get once we get into like talking about how they're going to play. I think that could be important. Another big incoming player is Sean Johnson, once considered one of the best keepers in the league. I don't know that that's been true for a little bit now. I think he's 36 now, which keepers can go a little bit longer now, but he was at NYCFC getting looks with the U.S. national team for a stretch there, and then was at Toronto the last 3 years, and then was a free agent, and DC picked him up as a free agent this year. So that's a pretty big signing for them as well. And then they're now missing Christian Benteke, who was kind of in and out with injuries last year, but was still their leading scorer, even though he had a down year by what the standards he had set for himself were.
Yeah, and I think the thing with Johnson is like he's at least decent, and it feels like over the last couple of years their keepers have been really bad. It's like having an average one is probably an increase. So we talked about, so they beat Philadelphia in the opening match, so they're one match on 3 points. So they've gone from wooden spoon to almost top of the table in the East. What can we expect from them in terms of style of play?
I watched the highlights and then some chunks of this game against Philly. I'd seen some Austin fans express concern that like, okay, DC was supposed to be bad, but they just beat Philly. Philly was not the Philly that we've come to expect over the last several years, which is a high quality side that always makes it work. It's not always pretty, but they're always effective. This was a pretty new team as far as personnel. They've changed out quite a few pieces, including losing Baribo, who was their leading scorer last year. So quite a few new pieces. They did not look like the Philly that we've come to know. So I think that's worth noting. As far as DC, where they were dangerous was often in transition moments. So they played like a 4-4-2 with Pirani, who's a player we've played against before, up top next to Baribo, and then Joao Peglo on the left wing, or that wide left midfielder, and are often trying to play long balls out into space to the winger and then get balls into Baribo while he's on the run. And that is how they scored the one goal. They almost scored another goal in a very similar moment that I think Baribo puts off the post, and then another one off of kind of like a set piece or a ball in from wide where Baribo just sneaks in past everyone. And so keeping an eye on Baribo is going to be the main part of it. But I think just being organized around the rest of the team and kind of making sure that nobody else on the team beats you, and then being aware, being ready, being in position in those transition moments to make sure that Baribo does not get in behind you and hurt you in that way, in the way that you know he's going to, right? Like, you have to come into this game knowing this is what they're going to do. This is the most dangerous thing they can do. How do we stop that?
Yeah, do you think when you talk about being dangerous transition moments, that's something that worries me when we talk about how Austin plays? Let's think about next week and who Austin FC might, or this week, like who Austin FC might have on the field, who might get back. Like do you expect to have Dessler and Biru both starting this week for Austin?
It seemed like the prognosis on Dessler was that maybe don't expect him in this game. I think it's possible, but if there's any doubt, I would expect them to hold him out just because of his history at this point. Like, don't risk it if you think there's even a chance he might re-injure himself. So I would expect to see John Gallagher again. I didn't think Kolmanich had some good moments, had some good plays, but there was several moments where Kolmanich really kind of let the team down, especially with his crossing. We've always said, like, that's what he's good at. That's like the one thing he's really good at. And he skied at least 2 crosses
terrible, yeah,
into Rosie, like just terrible. And so he played Nelson through one time with a really nice, like, curling through ball, and had some other decent moments. But I think Biru is a pretty big upgrade there, if that's the way Kolmanich is going to play. So hopefully we see that. And then the question of, does Rosales stay on the right wing? Like, do they try to figure out a way to make it work, or do we give up and try something else?
I don't feel like Nico's a guy who gives up after one match with anything. So I think we will probably see that one again. Yeah, and then it gets more interesting going forward as more people come back, that particularly being Owen Wolf, but that's not something we should think about this week. It still feels like this is one at home against an Eastern Conference team that won the wooden spoon last year, and isn't that fundamentally changed that this is a match that Austin should win.
Yeah, there's no gimmies in MLS, but there are certainly better and worse teams, and this is a worse team. Even if they are improved from last year, they are not a great soccer team. And so hoping Austin FC can find a way to win this one. Otherwise, I think the Inkblot test might have a few more homogenous results after this one if we lose to DC.
Yeah. Did I read they're giving away headbands or something? Did you see this? Maybe like headbands the first 2,500 fans?
Oh, I don't know.
Which seems very limited. I don't know. Show up really early. Let us know if you get a headband. We're actually not going to fact check this at all.
This part's not our job, Jeremiah.
Nope.
Anything else we need to cover here?
No, let's go ahead and wrap it up.
All right. Well, we'd like to remind you to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, some people don't know how to do this, which I was one of these ones. Go to the show page, scroll all the way to the bottom, and that's where you can leave a rating and do a little review. So do that. It helps us out a lot.
Yeah, and I was reading those today. I was reading some podcast reviews while I was sort of starting to work on the outline, and they gave me a little bit of energy that so many people like us. It made me feel good about it. So I guess if you like the show and you love our egos and they're fragile, like, leave us a review and we will treasure it.
Yeah, I had a listener recognize me at Live Oak Park before the game and came up and just said really nice things to me, and I was like, I needed that. So thanks for saying nice things about us. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back next week to review the DC United match and then preview Austin's first away match in Charlotte. And we'll cover any other Austin FC news that comes up. Until then, I'm Landon Cottam.
I'm Jeremiah Bentley.
We'll catch you next time.
When no one is around.
Think for nothing, you never.
La gente. Oh my God.
Because they love cheap boom boom sauce.
Yeah.